is so ill-equipped to be the president.
Now, to be clear, the cause of the flight's demise is yet undetermined. But each of the contenders has said the probable cause is terrorism. Trump tweets at 6:27 a.m., hours after the plane vanishes, looks like yet another terrorist attack. More than 7 hours after Trump's tweet, Hillary says it does appear that it was an act of terrorism. Now, I suspect the 7-hour or more than 7-hour difference reflects either Hillary's need to sleep late or to gauge the political winds. Now, economy is the #1 issue, terror #2. But I would venture a guess even more important than money for most is safety. So who will keep us safer? The polls, almost even a week ago, show most trust Donald Trump to do a better job than Hillary on terrorism. But each one of them says that we're safer with him or her. So where's the truth? Let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? In spite of their protestations, the world is a more dangerous place since Barack Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came to power. The so-called Arab Spring, sold as a refreshing movement toward democracy, was nothing more than a volcanic eruption, leaving a vacuum that barbaric medieval Islamists ran to fill. Now, Madam Secretary, you cannot deny it was you who lobbied for the overthrow of Libyan President Gaddafi, creating a descent into chaos and a welcome mat to terrorists. It was you, Madam Secretary, who didn't protect Ambassador Chris Stevens, instead responding to your so-called friend's plea for more security by actually reducing his security. And it was you who left Americans at that consulate when the Brits left and the Red Cross left because everybody else knew it was too dangerous. It was you who lied about a video when you told your own daughter that same night that it was an al-Qaeda-like attack in Benghazi. And you have the audacity to say the parents of those killed are basically liars when they repeated what you said. But then again, you talk a big game about terrorism.
Once again, shines a very bright light on the threats that we face from organized terror groups. ISIS, of course, but then there are other networks of terrorists that have to be hunted down and defeated.
You're going to hunt them down? Hillary, how long do your hunts take? Who's been brought to justice in the attack in Benghazi? And your doublespeak for the last 7.5 years. When a shooter yells Allahu Akbar and kills Americans at Fort Hood, we're supposed to call it workplace violence. And after Benghazi, the word Islamic is removed from the term Islamic extremist because we don't want to inflame their anger, as if they don't already want to kill us. By the way, Hillary, why haven't you taken a clear position on the release of those 28 sealed pages in the 9/11 Commission report that discusses Saudi Arabia's role? Could it be because the Persian Gulf states, notorious for their own human rights violations, and their leaders reportedly donated as much as $100 million to your family's so-called charity? Question: why would these Arabs give money to the Clintons instead of helping those in their own countries? After all, Hillary, charity doesn't begin at the Clinton Foundation. It begins at home. And you're going to keep us safe? Your own State Department's refugee program can't even vet refugees coming here. And what's that? All those are only words? You have everyone so fearful of being called an Islamophobe that ordinary Americans didn't report suspicious deliveries at the home of the Islamic terrorists who killed 14 in San Bernardino. And you're going to keep us safe, Hillary? Hell, you can't even keep top secret intelligence on your BlackBerry without Russia, China, and a Romanian hacker accessing it. So how can you keep us safe when you speak a different language from ordinary Americans? How can you keep us safe when you can't even say who the enemy is? It's not violent extremists. It's not terrorists. It's Islamic extremists. It's Islamic terrorist. And you can't mouth the words. Say it. Say it. But you won't. This isn't a parlor game, and not one for the faint of heart. So go back to bed, Hillary. There's someone else who's going to protect us. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, hashtag Judge Jeanine. And with me now is Donald Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Corey, good evening. Let me ask you this. How can Donald Trump convince ordinary Americans when he doesn't have a record of foreign policy to refer to that he can keep us safer than Hillary Clinton, who can at least say she was Secretary of State and United States Senator and First Lady?
Well, hey, thanks for having me on, number one. And number two, let's go back and look at that Clinton record. It has been a dismal disaster from the very beginning. And I think what the American people want is exactly what you alluded to at the beginning of your show, is safety at home. They want to know that they can get on an airplane and that they'll be safe when they land. They want to know that their homes will be protected, that there'll be jobs for them, that our country's going to be placed first again. That's not the case with Hillary Clinton. What we have seen in her administration through the time of Secretary of State, whether she was a U.S. Senator or the First Lady, is nation building outside of our country and giving those special privileges to everyone except Americans. And what we know with Donald Trump, he would put Americans first. He'll put our people back to work and renegotiate our trade deals so that for a change, people can be proud to be Americans again, and that's what this country needs.
And what do you say to those who say that Donald Trump's statement that, halting Muslim influx until we can figure out what's going on is actually racist?
Well, it's not racist at all. What we have is a failed immigration policy right now. We don't know who's coming into our country. We don't know who's crossing our borders. We couldn't even do simple background checks on social media for these people before we bring them in. And what we want to do is put a temporary hold. Let's just look and make sure that our government, which isn't doing their job properly, can vet these people so that we know we're not bringing terrorists into our country.
But
what we saw in San Bernardino was we saw a woman come into our country who was a radical terrorist. She radicalized her husband, and they killed 14 people. And they came in on a K-1 visa because they couldn't do a simple social media background check. That's what's wrong with our country. We need to do a better job to protect our own citizens.
Will we ever be able to do background checks on refugees? I mean, they're not coming out of these countries, with their license or registration and their criminal justice record.
Well, so then let's ask ourselves, what do we bring the refugees to our country for? Why aren't they staying in the region of the world? And we'll create a safe zone for them, and they can stay in the region of the world where they're most comfortable. Tell me what the value is of bringing people into our country who we know absolutely nothing about. We can't do a background check. We don't know who these people are. And then when they come into the country, candidly, we lose them. We can't even build a wall in front of Mexico to stop people from crossing the border and killing Americans in San Francisco. What makes us think that once we let these refugees in, they're going to stay where we ask them to stay, and they're not going to go off on their own merry way and be a burden on our country?
Okay,
let's
Corey.
control our borders for a change.
Okay, Corey, look, Donald Trump admittedly is not doing as well with women as Hillary is, and she's not doing as well with men as he is. But given his endorsement by the NRA yesterday, do you think this helps or hurts him with women?
Well, look, again, women are not single-issue voters, and this is what the misnomer is. Donald Trump is doing exceptionally well with people who they always said he never would. In the last poll that came out, he has a 10-point lead amongst Hispanics over Hillary Clinton. They said originally he would never have that lead. He's now leading her by 10 points. And what women want, in my opinion, and you're one judge, you know better than I do, is they want safety for their homeland. They want safety for their families. They want to make sure they have good-paying jobs. They want to make sure they can take care of their families. They're not single-issue voters, so this notion that Donald Trump doesn't do well with women is crazy. 30 years ago, when he started building his business, he put women in the highest positions possible, and they still run those businesses today.
Okay, look, a Fox News poll we have shows that with women, Clinton's 50%, Trump's 36%, men 33% for Clinton, and men 55% for Trump. So Hillary's got 14 points up on women than Donald does. So that's the latest poll that we have from Fox.
Yeah, but we also have the polls that show that he does unbelievably well with African Americans, that he does unbelievably well with Hispanics. He is bringing everyone together. And don't forget, he has been the presumptive nominee for exactly 2 weeks. We haven't even started on Hillary Clinton yet. She has a failed record as Secretary of State, as U.S. Senator, and I think Donald Trump is going to highlight that failure, and it's going to bring those women to us because they want safety.
All right. Now, as you know, I've been in 5 campaigns, and I know there's a lot of tensions in campaigns. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of competition. And recently we're hearing about some tensions in the Trump campaign. Now, Paul Manafort, is he now the chairman of the campaign? And how does that affect your role and what's going on in the campaign?
Sure. So this is typical media, want to hype something that isn't there. But let me tell you what's going on. Our campaign has 70 people on a total running a presidential campaign. Hillary Clinton's campaign has 732 people in it. So we're small, we're tight-knit, we're working very well together, and we're going to continue to grow and bring more people in. But you also have to look at the mindset, is what we can accomplish with a small group is the mindset that our government needs. Look at the amount of money that our campaign has spent compared to Hillary Clinton. She spent $182 million. We've spent $60 million, a third of what she has spent, and candidly, we're doing much better. Millions of more votes than anybody else in the Republican field Donald Trump has gotten. What you have to do in scenarios like this is
Corey,
you bring people in.
What's your title on the campaign?
I'm the campaign manager, and that's not going to change. I'm the campaign manager, and it's such a privilege.
Campaign manager. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Judge.
All right. And joining me now, live from Paris, best-selling author and screenwriter Dan Gordon, who also serves as a captain in the reserves of the Israeli Defense Forces. Good evening, and thank you, Dan, for being up so late tonight. I understand that you got to Paris the day after the Egypt Air flight crashed, correct?
Yes, actually, I flew to Paris a few hours after the crash, and I was shocked that when I got to Charles de Gaulle Airport, absolutely no one checked my passport. I could have come in from anywhere. No one knew who I was, let alone if I was on a terrorist watch list. I think that's one of the main problems that is facing Europe right now.
But, you know, Dan, what's so surprising is that President Hollande, after the attack in Paris in November of 2015, seemed more determined than ever to make sure that people coming into France through Charles de Gaulle would be people who would be vetted for the safety of his own French citizens. Is that not happening?
It certainly wasn't happening the day that I came here, and you're right about President Hollande. After the Bataclan attacks in just 6 months ago, in which 130 people were killed in 6 different locations in Paris, President Hollande said this act of war was prepared, decided upon, and planned in Syria, organized in Belgium, and carried out on our territory with the complicity of citizens of France. And I think that summed up the problem that the Europeans face in a nutshell. They've lost control of their borders, and they've allowed pockets of Islamist extremism to exist, and they're paying a price for it.
And so, you know, with the downing of Egypt Air, and we still, I have to say, don't know whether or not it was an act of terrorism, but are there any international standards so that I have these statistics that every year something like 12 million, 13 million Americans go to Europe? How do you think this is going to affect overseas travel, and which are the carriers that you think people should or shouldn't be flying?
Well, look, I think the terrorist strategy is already starting to work. Paris right now is, quite frankly, deserted. There's a complete lack of tourism. People who would generally find crowds in the cafes and the various squares in Paris. It's deserted and it's empty, and that's by design from the terrorist point of view. They've succeeded in that regard. The carriers that they target usually are national carriers. If you look at our own experience, they attacked American Airlines, United Airlines. I think until we're proved differently, we have to assume that this was an act of terrorism, because if you look back at history, Al-Qaeda placed a bomb in 1994 on Philippine Air 434 and never took credit for it, because they planned to place 12 such bombs on 12 different airplanes in Project Bojinka in 1995. So the fact that no one's taking credit for this actually is very disturbing to me. I think it may be a trial run because usually, even if there had been a crash of an airplane, one terrorist organization or another would have taken responsibility simply to establish street cred. So the fact that no one's taken responsibility, I think, is a bit sinister if we look at history and see that's exactly what Ramzi Youssef did in 1994.
All right, Dan Gordon, stay safe over there in Paris. But, of course, we still don't know the cause of the downing of that jet. Thank you. All right, and Mike Huckabee still ahead tonight. And next, I'll break down the general election with pollster Lee. A brand new Fox News poll out this week shows that in a head-to-head matchup this November, Donald Trump would now beat Hillary Clinton. So can he continue to gain momentum as we head into November? With me now to break it all down is Republican pollster Lee Carter. All right, Lee, just a few months ago, Hillary Clinton has this huge lead over Donald Trump. And a few days ago, Hillary Clinton has a slim lead. Today, we've got a Fox News poll from a couple days ago that right now Trump leads Clinton 45 to 42%.
That's right.
Or on the screen, 37 to 42%. So I have a presidential vote preference in front of me. Anyway, what's happening?
You know, there's a huge momentum shift that's happening. And, it's almost impossible to say how two candidates are going to stack up against each other until you see them against each other. What we've been seeing right now is that they've started to almost go head-to-head, although Bernie's not out of the way yet. The attack ads on Trump are out. It's going back and forth. The bottom line is this. Donald Trump is more trustworthy than Hillary Clinton. People think that Donald Trump is less corrupt than Hillary Clinton. And the more that the people hear from him, the more that they're responding to him, and the polls are starting to change. It's not what anybody expected. It's not what anybody predicted, but it's certainly happening, and the momentum is with Donald Trump.
Well, and as Donald says, he hasn't even started on her. But, with this, the issue of women going forward, according to the polls, Donald is still not doing as well with women, but is doing better with men. How does he change that? And does the NRA endorsement help him at all in that regard?
I think it's going to be really, really hard for him to change this, as it has been for any Republican. Republicans historically have not drawn women's votes. So this isn't entirely surprising. Hillary's having a big problem driving male votes, and that's going to be a big issue for her. Now, how does Donald Trump pull it back? He's had Ivanka speaking this week, and that's been very, very good. The NRA endorsement certainly helps with some people, but not all. The women's issue is one that he's got to deal with. I've tested all the attack ads this week, and the attack ad that was the most hurtful to him was the one where he's talking about women. Certainly something he needs to come back, but I think the best way for Donald Trump to come back is absolutely by Donald Trump by association. So if he can start surrounding himself with strong women, with people who are proponents of women, it's going to make him seem better, stronger, and I think his daughter Ivanka is one of those, but there's many others that need to come out and will be coming out for him.
All right, and the whole point by Hillary, and I have to tell you, as a woman, I kind of took offense at this when she says that she's going to basically outsource economic issues to her husband. I thought as a woman, as a supposedly strong woman, she looked very weak in that regard, and obviously the whole thing boomeranged, did it not?
It absolutely did. I dial tested this twice this week with two different sets of audiences. Even the Democrats were devastated by this, because the bottom line is this: the number one most important issue to Americans today is jobs and the economy. And if the candidate is going to say, look, I'm just going to give that job over to my husband, it makes it seem flip, it makes it seem glib, it makes it seem like she's not qualified, and it seems like a throwback to a time that's totally different.
Real fast, Lee, because we got to go. What about the issue of terrorism? Does that help or hurt Donald?
Well, it helps Donald because he does much better on terrorism and national security and terrorism. She does better on foreign policy, but terrorism,
kind of
national security is all for Donald Trump.
Lee
That's
Carter,
right.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, anytime. Great to see you.
And street justice still ahead tonight, plus one of my favorite. Welcome back to Justice. Joining me now, former Republican presidential candidate and former governor of the state of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. All right, good evening, Governor Huckabee. It's good to have you here on Justice. Now, what do Republicans have to do to win this election in November?
Well, Republicans just have to come together and then recognize they've got a lot of people who have not been voting for them historically. A lot of working class people, union members, people who've been independents and Democrats. I think Donald Trump is going to win this election. And I really believe if you look at it, he is the guy that nobody thought would win, and he blew everybody out. Hillary is the person that nobody thought could lose, and she's barely hanging on against a 74-year-old socialist. So this election is not, as it's often touted to be, that Trump is way behind. And the polls are now reflecting that
Wow,
he's
I'll tell
ahead
you,
of her.
Governor, I just said it. I mean, the polls right now have Trump beating Hillary. That's today.
Well, they do. And this is early. And there's something that I think people miss. Hillary is going to be very predictable. She's not like her husband, who is very nimble politically. He could react, he could respond, he could pivot. Hillary is like the British Army in the Revolutionary War. She'll wear a very bright red coat. She'll march to the cadence of a very pronounced drum, and she'll march in an open field shoulder to shoulder with other redcoats. Donald Trump is going to come at her from the trees like she's never seen before. And
But
that's
he'll
going
have
to
his
so
blue
put
suit
her
on
off her
anyway.
game. Well, but it's going to be, and there's one other thing, Judge, that I think people have not really thought about. Donald Trump has eviscerated every opponent he had in the primary. When he goes after Hillary, it's not going to be unlike the kind of campaign he's run against his own team. So when typically what happens, the Republicans, well, they have their battles, but it's not that mean, and then they get to the general, and when they go after their opponent, it really can come across poorly, especially if it's a female. That's not going to be the case with Trump. He went after everybody.
All right. Now, what about this Gary Johnson, this libertarian who's got now Bill Weld running for vice president? How is that third-party candidacy? I mean, if it even is one, how does that affect the race? Does it hurt Trump or help him?
It could hurt him a little bit, but in the long run, let's remember there's always been a libertarian candidate. I don't think there's a groundswell for the libertarian candidate, and I know Gary Johnson. He's a good guy. He was governor of New Mexico when I was in office as governor.
And Bill Weld, governor
had a good
of
record there.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
I knew Bill Weld as well. He was in Massachusetts. These are good guys, but, you know, we don't have a history of having it. And plus, here's what I do think, keep in mind. There will be as many Bernie supporters who are not going to vote for Hillary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the worry she's got to have.
Well, the Bernie supporters, and very quickly now, and we don't know whether Egypt flight demise was terrorism or not, but does terrorism help or hurt Trump?
It's a big issue for him because he's the guy that makes it very clear he's not going to put up with this. And he's unafraid to call out terrorism as just what it is. You know, people don't have terrorist acts saying Jesus saves. They say Allah Akbar. And he's been clear to point that out, and that's a big advantage.
Governor Huckabee, thanks so much. And next, she's back. I go one-on-one with liberal radio talk show host Coco Sudek. The battle continues as Hillary Clinton still hasn't clinched the Democratic Party's nomination. But Bernie isn't her only problem. At least two other new polls show this week that Donald Trump has edged out ahead of her in a head-to-head matchup come November. Joining me now is liberal radio show host Coco Sudek. Okay, Coco. All right.
Hello, Judge.
Hello. Why can't she close the deal?
You know, Bernie is a terrific leader, and he's running a great campaign, and she's getting real close. She's just a few delegates away from locking it down, and when she does in California, it's going to be over.
Okay.
Go to the convention. Big show of unity. You're going to see everybody coming together. All the Democrats going to come together under Hillary's banner.
What do you say to those, Coco, who say that the Bernie supporters are not, like a lot of the Trump supporters, the establishment rank and file of the parties, and that they will be so angry, as evidenced by the Nevada convention last week when they were throwing chairs and they are calling it a rigged system because of the special superdelegates, I should say. I mean, what makes you think that they'll just come in and say, oh, okay, to Hillary?
Well, first of all, in 2008, I remember how mad we all were at each other if we were in the Obama camp or the Hillary camp. And we all came together in the end and voted for the president. But the second thing is, look, something's going on. People, voters on both sides of the aisle are sick of the way things are. They want something, they want a more broad-based governance. They want a more dignified, a more orderly, a more fair government.
Okay.
And that's what they're demanding.
But
I think this is
isn't
very
Hillary
healthy
Clinton
to throw over the parties.
Isn't Hillary Clinton an example of the system, of the establishment for the last 20, 30 years? How does the fact that people want something outside of the box help her? And how is it that a virtual unknown like Bernie Sanders is really giving her a run for her money?
Well, Bernie Sanders is not a virtual unknown. If you've been,
unless you live in New Hampshire, he's an unknown.
That's not true. Look, Democrats love
Vermont,
Bernie Sanders
sorry.
and have loved Bernie Sanders for 30 years, and he's not an outsider. He was a mayor, a congressman, and a senator, and he's been in public life just as long as she has.
Okay,
he
good.
may be
Except
playing the
that
role
she's
of the
a little
outsider.
more well known. Now let's talk
She is.
about Hillary saying that she's going to outsource the economy to her husband Bill. I, as a woman, irrespective of party, was insulted about a woman running to be the top commander-in-chief saying, "Oh, I'll let my husband do it." Didn't that offend you, Coco?
Yeah, it's stupid, but look.
Boy,
Bill
Coco,
Clinton
you're
ran
easy
the greatest.
tonight.
No, I know, but Bill Clinton ran the greatest economy that we had seen in decades, and
Well,
so she made a joke about the success
It
of the
wasn't
Clinton
a joke.
economy.
She said she
It's
was bringing
funny.
them in.
It's
Okay.
a joke.
All
Come
right,
on.
good. Well, you know what? That's like Madeleine Albright. If the women don't vote for Hillary, we're all going to hell. That was a joke, too. But
When do we get to talk about
let me
Trump?
talk about the terror thing that's going on right now. She says she can keep us safer. He says, Donald Trump says he can keep us safer. And the majority of Americans, 52% agree. 53 to 41. 52 to 40 say that he can. Why is it that a woman with all these credentials can't convince Americans that she can keep us safe?
Well, first of all, that's one poll, and it's a Fox poll, and other polls show different. And second, I guess if Donald Trump if insulting whole populations of the world will keep us safe, then that's the guy to do it, because that's what he's really great at.
But let's
he's
talk about
insulting
the fact
people
that it's
and
only
saying stupid
the
things.
Islamic Muslims, terrorists, who are coming after the rest of the world. I mean, it's
I know
not
you guys
like,
are obsessed.
you know, the...
you guys are obsessed with this label. It doesn't matter.
It is
The
a
thing
label.
is-
If you don't know who
It
the
is a
enemy
label.
is, how are you going to kill them?
We know who the enemy is.
Who?
The enemy are people committed to taking down the West, people who hate us for all kinds of reasons.
People hate us all
But
over the
we
world. The
also-
only ones cutting our heads off are the Muslim terrorists. And you know what? She's going to lose the election because she can't say it. Coco
There are
Sudek.
plenty of Christian terrorists in this country.
Oh, really?
But she doesn't
really?
call. Yeah,
Give me an
but
idea.
yes.
Have they taken down the World Trade Center, Paris,
No,
Brussels?
but they go and they
Gotta
shoot up
go.
Planned
Gotta
Parenthood.
go. How about San
All right.
Bernardino? They're telling me I have to go. I want to fight with Coco. Thanks, Coco.
That was an American.
Street
Judge, good to see you. Thanks.
Yeah, Street Justice still ahead. And next, Donald Justice. And joining me now is a man who went from acting on The Sopranos to politics. Anthony Ribistello is a New York Republican activist and an alternate delegate to the GOP convention this year. Anthony, thanks for being here. Now, I'm very excited about the fact that you are pretty much best known for your role as Dante Greco, Tony Soprano's driver on the HBO series The Sopranos.
Yes.
All right, so tell me, what, if any, similarities do you see between Tony Soprano and Donald Trump?
Well, the character Tony Soprano is way more fierce than Donald Trump is. Most definitely. But they are.
Is that because he killed people when he got mad at them?
Yeah, pretty much. But they both have courage of their convictions. That's what I like about Donald Trump. And personally, Jimmy was a great guy, and I miss him a lot.
Jimmy Gabaldon.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you were part of that show, did you feel like, you know, here was a guy who could make decisions, a guy who, you know, didn't really care about what was politically correct? Do you kind of see that similarity?
No, he had his own compass. He was what was good for him, what was good for his family, both families. That was it.
Both
Nothing
families.
Else. Nothing else. Yeah.
All right. And you know, going into the convention, I mean, and going into the election, what do you see as, you know, the single most important issue to Americans from your vantage point?
Safety.
Safety. And how do you think that plays in terms of this Trump versus Hillary?
And you know, we've had 8 years of Hillary and Barack, and it hasn't worked. It just simply hasn't worked. The Middle East is a mess. It's a quagmire. How do we get out of it? I don't know. But we have to do something else. The playbook has to be thrown in the garbage, and we have to do something else.
What about, you know, Tony Soprano? Did you ever talk politics to him?
No, we always talked music, like Beatles and stuff like that. We never really talked politics because I don't want to get into politics when you're on set because you're just, you know, you're being the character, you're being real, and that muddles the water. I don't want to do that.
Interesting. And do you miss it?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm still acting, but I miss The Sopranos part of my life because it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Thanks for being with us, Tony Soprano's driver.
Thank you for
Anthony
having me.
Ribostello, thanks. Who are you supporting for president?
Trump.
Why?
It's very simple because when he speaks, I understand him. He speaks like I speak. He communicates with people very well. I want him, as any one person can do, is to go into Washington and blow it up. I'm fed up. I'm done with them. I'm done with the Republicans. They've lied and conned and BS'd me for a very long time now. And I don't even consider myself a Republican anymore. I'm a conservative independent.
That was back in March in L.A. Actor Scott Baio endorsing Donald Trump right here in a Justice exclusive. That endorsement trended on Twitter the same night, and since then, you may have seen Scott just about everywhere you look. He just visited New York, and there was just one place I had to take him. Scott Baio and I head to Trump Tower in this week's Street Justice.
She's staring at you. Why are you staring? Why are you staring at
Scott Baio.
Damn it.
Happy days. Happy days back in the day.
What's up, brother?
You ladies are staring at this man. Who is this
How are you?
He was from Happy Days, Scott Baio from Happy Days.
That's right. Are you from Australia?
We see you every Sunday in
Charles
Sydney.
in charge was big in
2
your
o'clock
country too, wasn't he?
Oh, saw him. You got all excited. Why?
Sure. Well, I mean, as a child growing up, I remember Happy Days, right?
How are you, young man? What's your name? Tucker. That's an awesome name. After this interview, your dad, you'll say, Dad, who was that guy? What was the show you know me from?
Santa Cat.
And the other one, See Dad Run. There you go. And Charles in Charge.
Oh, how many shows have you
A
done?
lot. I'm here to support Donald Trump for president.
Wonderful. Yeah. And do you know that this man has supported someone for president?
Well, that's why we're here. We came by. We had to see the Trump Towers.
Oh, are you a Trump fan?
I guess. Yeah.
You gotta listen to your old man. He knows a lot.
When are you getting those braces off?
Sure.
But the fact that Scott is supporting Donald Trump, do you think that'll bring people along?
Makes it better.
Yeah? All right. Yeah, it makes it better.
That's so sweet. Oh, thank you.
How many people do you think, because Scott Baio is supporting Donald Trump,
Seven.
will
Seven
vote for Donald? How many more people?
Well, you already had my vote.
Did you know that Scott, even though he's from LA, is endorsed
I'm from Brooklyn.
and supporting
I'm
Donald
from,
Trump?
I'm from Brooklyn. I'm
Yeah,
not from
but how
LA.
long have you been in
But
LA?
that's different. I lived there a long time, but I'm from Brooklyn.
What do you think of Trump Tower?
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's really nice.
You know, when I designed it, I really wanted that Starbucks to be because I don't drink coffee.
You don't drink coffee?
I don't.
Why?
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
You know what? We're going up there in a minute.
Are we?
Yeah, I'm buying you
Well,
coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
Well, you should taste it. I didn't drink whiskey either until I tasted
drink
it.
whiskey, the judge. You see her go after people, how amazing she is? She's the best.
The world needs Donald Trump even more to make it safe again.
So that when people say, you know, around the world the leaders are disgusted with us, that's a lie, right?
No.
That's hogwash.
Hog big wash.
Hog big wash. That's a new one. Hog big wash. Be on television.
I don't care.
Why do you think Americans are so wrapped up in this election?
Because they're tired of the old system.
See, this guy right here, to me, is indicative of a lot of people that just tired of the same old crap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that guy speaks for, like, me, he speaks for everybody.
Yeah.
You're going to be on Judge Judy.
Thank you. What? Me? All right, he wants a picture with me from Vienna, Austria. Do you like Donald Trump?
I hope so, yes. I like him.
What does that mean, you hope so?
So, yeah, I like him.
All right, good. We got the picture. You guys work for Donald Trump. You think he'd make a good president?
Be a great president. He's a great boss.
33 years working for him.
Really?
Yeah.
33 years.
He really knows him.
So he's a loyal guy, Trump.
Yeah.
That's good. And how's he treat women?
The best.
Better than us.
That's a classic.
You want to change shirts? I'll put that shirt on right now. Let's go.
You're not getting this off my back. Trump needs all the support he could get.
All right, what's wrong with the rest of Hollywood?
You're stupid. You've been waiting for a politician like him to come along for like
No,
the last
you've been waiting for a
25 years.
businessman like him to come along,
Well,
not a
that's what we need to
politician.
run the country. Somebody
Right.
smart that runs it like a business.
Not a
tells the
politician.
truth, and he like with my music, I believe in giving people how I feel in my heart
Go.
and soul, and
Sing.
that's how he
Sing
is.
us something.
God bless America, land that I love, and I'm going to be working in his campaign and helping him as long. Here, you want it? Here, take it. I will take the microphone. Hi.
Why are you screaming?
Scott Mio! Oh my God, I'm probably old enough to be your mother.
He is endorsing Donald. Does that surprise you?
No.
Why?
Anybody with a half a brain would endorse Donald.
Scott Baio, because your wife loves him. Are you jealous?
Oh yeah, okay.
No, I'm too old. I'm too old to be jealous.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
It was a lot of fun that day in Trump Tower, and I'm happy to report that it all ended with Scott and his family getting to meet the man he's voting for, Donald Trump. And that's it for us tonight. Remember to friend me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Judge_Jeanine.